Remember Ronald Reagan talking about Jimmy Carter?
Ronald Reagan used to ask,
are you better off?
Are you better off?
Are you better off?
are you better off?
But are we better off?
It's not whether we're better off, it's whether they're better off.
Are you better off?
Better off.
Better off.
Better off?
Better off.
Better off.
Better off. Better off.
Than you were 4 years ago?
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? That's the question nearly every candidate for president has asked the American people for almost half a century. Now, you might think that in the unique situation of the 2024 election, coming 4 years after the onset of a devastating pandemic and worldwide economic turmoil, the man who was in charge at that time would refrain from posing the traditional question. But you would be wrong. Just 2 days ago, Trump posted it in all caps. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And his allies, like Fox News host Sean Hannity, are actually claiming it is a bad question for Democrats.
Democrats are using fear and division to mask what has been a terrible 4 years under Biden. I repeat, they cannot run on are you better off than you were 4 years ago. This is all they have left.
But I don't know, Sean. Let me think. How were things 4 years ago today? Let's take a look. This is the front page of the New York Times from March 20th, 2020. 4 years ago exactly today. And 4 years later, it is easy to forget how intense and terrifying this moment in time was. Look at that. The headlines bring you right back. It's like reading something out of a disaster movie. Just look at the full page, all caps, main headline, quote, "Doctors sound alarm as a nation struggles." Right below it, shortages of gear imperil staffs at hospital. Healthcare workers are running out of masks, gowns, gloves, as cases surged, shown in this big map covered in red circles. You could already see that New York City was about to become the epicenter. Below that, a desperate report on the utter lack of treatment or protection against the deadly virus. Quote, "A global race to figure out a silver bullet." Then, on the brewing economic disaster as non-essential businesses across the country were ordered to close, claims surge as employees are cut loose. And finally, a damning revelation about the Trump administration's failure to prepare. Quote, "Warning of a pandemic last year was unheeded." That is the story of 4 years ago exactly today, as told by the paper The Record on the morning of March 20th, 2020. It did not get any better as that day went on. And as we now know, Donald Trump knew how bad things were going to get. Remember, he told Bob Woodward, before anyone else knew this, in private, the virus could be transmitted through the air and that it would be difficult to contain. He told him it was more strenuous than the flu and that he was going to play it down so as not to create a panic. Knowing all that, knowing what he knows, take a listen to the reporting from the evening news versus the story being told by the President of the United States at the time, Donald Trump, in his 90-minute news conference that afternoon.
Breaking news tonight, the coronavirus forcing millions more Americans into virtual lockdown. Over 75 million people in New York, California, Illinois, and Connecticut ordered to stay at home.
I think we're doing a better job than hopefully most, if not all. We're doing a very effective job, but we'll know better in 14 or 15 days.
Fear on the front lines. ER doctors saying we are on the verge of a medical disaster. Healthcare workers' lives at risk.
My message to the American people is that there is a very low incidence of death. If you get it, if you happen to get it, it is highly unlikely. It's looking like it's getting to a number that's much smaller than people originally thought in terms of the ultimate problem, which would be death.
The staggering rise in unemployment. People out of work lining up for free meals.
We have a tremendous economy. We do numbers like no other country has ever done before. #1 in the world, if you go back 2 weeks, and still, obviously, but if you go back 2 weeks, #1 in the world by far. That money comes back to us very rapidly.
Continued frustration over testing for the virus. Most states struggle to meet demand. A newly opened site in Paramus, New Jersey today filled to capacity and forced to close within 4 hours.
You're hearing very positive things about testing. We're having these private labs have come in. They've been really fantastic. And we also have a great system for the future because, as I said, we inherited, meaning this administration, an obsolete, broken system.
With supplies and medicine running low, hospitals are now preparing to make terrible decisions about which patient has a better chance of survival. and which patient may be denied the care they need.
What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Go ahead. I think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people. The American people are looking for answers, and they're looking for hope. And you're doing sensationalism.
I'm going to leave it to you to decide. March 20th, 2024. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?